And so we reach Jonah 2:9, just this verse and the next, and we'll be halfway through the book of Jonah, and in my mind, halfway through this Hebrew course. So we're going to do the equivalent of 2 semesters of Hebrew content in my mind. With the end of Jonah 2, we will have finished the first semester, as it were, of this Hebrew course. But let's dive into Jonah 2:9. See if you can pronounce this Hebrew here. Here's how I would. Va'ani bakol todah, ez baka lak. Okay, what do we recognize here? Well, I recognize vav as and. Ani, I recognize as I, the word I. Ba, I think, is in or with. It is. And kol, you may not know this, is the word for voice. So, but I with the voice. And I'm going with but because normally at the beginning of a sentence, say, the vav is on a verb. And so when the Hebrew switches it up, usually it's doing something different, like something contrastive, but instead of and. But I with the voice, todah. Todah means of thanksgiving. So todah ravah, great thanks. Anyway, but I with a voice of thanksgiving. So even though you can't see it, I would consider kol to be in construct, voice of. The holem vav, I've said this before, I know I say a lot of things. The holem vav is historically long, so it never reduces. Most constructs reduce the vowel. That's one of the ways you know in the base form that it's construct. But you just can't reduce a holem vav in this situation. It don't do it. It refuses. I'm long. I'm always going to be long. Anyway, not important. But I with a voice of thanksgiving. Okay, here's an interesting form. Let's come right back to it. La means to. Ka normally would be second feminine singular. This is really second masculine singular because it's referring to God, and it's not doing anything funny theologically here. It's just, I saw this before in Jonah. Apparently under some circumstances, the ka, the ah goes away, and it just becomes lak. I would have liked it to be laka, but it's something it does. Look it up and tell me in the notes if you're watching this on YouTube. Or if you're taking the Udemy course, I'll find out the answer if you want to know. But I, with a voice of thanksgiving, let me sacrifice to you. Now, let's look at this here. What do you know, or what might you think? Well, zavak is to sacrifice. That's the core 3. What are the 3 core? It's zayin, bet, and chet. So zavak is the core in there. The aleph on the front, it hopefully has you thinking, the first common singular preformative of the imperfect tense has an aleph. And in fact, see the me here? I'll be honest, when I first looked at this, I translated it, I will sacrifice, like it was an imperfect. However, this qamats hey is significant. When you take a qamats hey and you put it on a first singular imperfect, there is something called see the word here, cohortative. Don't let a big word scare you. It's a way of making it into a command. So the way you make in English, we don't think about, commands are all second person, right? You pick up your clothes. You take out the trash. But you can take a first singular and make it into a kind of command but with this qamats hey, and it means let me sacrifice. But let me, and so the I goes with the aleph here. But let me sacrifice to you, Yahweh, with the voice of thanksgiving. So the other thing you might notice is that the second consonant, the bet, is doubled. And in fact, this is a PL, used to be called, still is quite often, or the D, what I call the D stem, the doubling stem. That has a sense of putting something into a certain state. So let me we don't want to over-theologize it. That's an overread of it. You just look it up. It basically means let me sacrifice to you with a voice of thanksgiving. I know it's PL, I know it's D, but anyway, I'm going to translate it sacrifice because that's what seems to make the most sense here. So you can sacrifice other than with animals in the Old Testament, right? You can do sacrifices of praise, sacrifices of thanksgiving, and so forth. So I call this a D cohortative first common singular from zavach. Okay? And you wreak havoc. You wreak havoc, you read zavach when you sacrifice something. I don't know if that helps you remember the word. All right, so see if you can pronounce the next line. Asher nadarti a shalema Yeshuata. Yeshua, hear Yeshua in there. Jesus, salvation is the word. Le-Yahweh, to Yahweh. So what do we recognize here? I recognize Asha as that or what, basically the relative pronoun. I recognize the T as the first common singular ending of a perfect tense. And if nadar means to vow, then what I vowed, so this is a perfect here. And then Yeshua ta, this is the word salvation. By the way, the Yeshua by itself means salvation. The extra qamats hey is a little puzzling because it doesn't really do anything. So a lot of times if you have a Yeshua, if you have a hey, and then you add another something to it, sometimes the hey will turn into a tav. Again, not important to life. La is two. So let me repay what I have vowed. What I have vowed, let me repay. Salvation belongs to Yahweh. We have to put a verb in there. Or salvation is to Yahweh. Salvation belongs to Yahweh. Okay, so this is the thing I don't understand, right? Again, it's very similar, isn't it? We've got a qamats hey at the end. We've got an aleph on the front, which is a first common singular, usually imperfect, from shalom, that means to repay. This is another cohortative. We have two cohortatives in this verse where we've stuck a qamats hey on a first singular verb. So here's the analysis. The qamats hey is a hint that it's cohortative. The word is shalom, which means to repay. And then the aleph on the front would normally have me thinking first common singular imperfect, but with the qamats hey it becomes a command, or what we call a cohortative. And again, the doubled second letter, see the doubled second letter, has me thinking that is the PL or D stem indeed. By the way, there is a shavah under the performative. We've said in the previous video on Jonah 2:8 that the D stem tends to have a shavah under the performative. Well, the aleph has a shavah under the performative, but the problem is that gutturals don't like simple shavahs, and so they also like A-class vowels. And so what the aleph has done is it's saying, can't you give me a little more sound? I want a little bit more than just a simple vocal schwa. Give me a little more sound. Give me a little A sound. Give me some of that A sound. And so that's where the ketef patak came in. All right, Jonah 2:9. But let me sacrifice with the voice of thanksgiving to you, Yahweh. What I have vowed, let me repay. Okay, fine, I'll go to Nineveh. Salvation belongs to Yahweh because God is going to save him. And in fact, the final verse of this chapter is God saving and rescuing Jonah.